Hi, I'm Ella McCrystal, and this is The New Mind. Today's guest is someone that I think many of you will know and love. It is Thomas from season 8 of Married at First Sight. Now, Thomas is, I think, quite a popular character and also an interesting choice for the show. I don't think we've seen anyone like Thomas before on Married at First Sight. And I think, for me personally, he's probably, along with Rozz, actually, my favourite cast member. And I was really delighted that he wanted to come on today and talk all things Married at First Sight, but also as a storytelling podcast, I want to know a bit more about the Thomas before the telly. Welcome, Thomas.
Hello, thank you so much, Ella, for having me.
Oh, do you know what? We've chatted before today on Instagram, and you're so funny and so lovely, and you stay up really, really late, as do I. So we probably should both look at that.
Oh yeah, sending a reply to your message at 4 o'clock in the morning and not even remembering that message is quite odd. Like, thank God, it's just like, yeah, it just replied to something silly.
Yeah, he's a very good boy, I must admit. Like, it's late night conversation, but good conversation. Like, very innocent, but just such a sweet person. And I've spent some time talking to you today because I like to do that with everybody, because I feel like when we start having this conversation, it just makes it a bit easier, doesn't it, than going straight in. And I really feel there's such a sweet side to you that I think everyone got to see, but I wanted to look into that more, because there's parts of you that I've discovered today that I don't think people would have necessarily seen. Mm-hmm. And I want to share that with everybody. And I do mean it when I say, and I've told you a couple of times today, that you probably are my favourite from the show. I think you're just such a breath of fresh air. Tell me about before the show, what made you decide to say yes? Because you were cast.
Yes, so I was, they ask you to apply.
Okay.
So they ask you to apply so that you can either say yes or no. Some people had applied in previous seasons and then asked to apply again and go through the process. So with me, I remember I was applying to Big Brother as I got the message.
No way.
So it was almost just like, I was like, it's not that I wanted to be on TV. I just thought I'd maybe do something different, something a bit fun.
Why on TV though?
It's not necessarily TV, just like, it's like a fun experience. Because I applied to, I got asked to do First Dates a few years ago, but then COVID happened. Naked Attraction as well, got asked to do that. We're not doing that. Wow. Got bad enough all the girls saying it's how big it is, you know. How small it is. No, I'm kidding. But ultimately, all jokes aside, the reason why I chose to do this show is because I've been single for such a long time. And as the show did explore, I did have a very bad relationship.
Yeah.
Previously. And yeah, that relationship has really impacted me. I thought before I went on the show, when I was going through the application process, the wound's healed. It's just a scar. Let's see if we're ready for a relationship. And then once I said yes, once I was going through the process with Rozz, through the experiment, I just remember thinking, I was thinking to myself, I remember we were in bed one night, I think week 1, it's not a scar, it's an open wound.
Oh,
it is an open wound. And I remember I said in my vows to Rozz, I'm here as my best self. No, I wasn't. Honestly, it was watching it back was so difficult, watching yourself look so defeated with life, watching all the people around you just being so overly critical.
Yeah.
And then when I joined the experiment, met all the beautiful people in the show, namely Rozz, but also people like JJ, Luke, Paul, George, all these amazing people, they just brought out sides of me I hadn't seen in such a long time. Oh. And I'm so grateful for that. And especially with Rozz, because she just, she was just amazing.
She seemed so warm. And I know actually, sadly, you sort of said off camera, she'd had a bit of a hard time with people not being so pleasant and actually being quite horrible to her on socials or whatever. But I just thought she was really sweet. Like, I used to see you together and just think they really are, whether it's a match made in heaven or just like a really lovely connection between the two of you, And I just thought they're really so sweet and authentic together. And I genuinely did think that. And I think I said to you before, with Rozz in particular and towards the end of the relationship, I did definitely have teary-eye moments. I think everybody that watched that show really wanted you and Rozz to work out. And I think maybe there was a lot of healing that you had to do. And I think from what you've said to me, but I think you'll say it again, she brought out a really lovely side to you, and you were always meant to meet each other, whether that's romantic meetings or not. But I think you know now that there's work to do based on that relationship. And that's not because she hurt you. That's because actually she was able to hold space for you. Is that right?
100%. Rozz did nothing wrong. We both had said the entire time, this is an experiment. We're going to give it our best shot. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. And I remember she did ask me, you know, if things ended, would we still be friends? And I did promise to her, we will always be friends.
Yeah.
But when she ended it, what I was so upset about wasn't necessarily because the relationship had ended. Of course, I was going to miss her. Like, I cared for her so deeply, and I still do. And she's such an amazing person. I was just scared that, this is going to be the last time we're even going to speak and be this close to each other. I'm probably never going to see her again. But it's just a testament to a character that she still actually does want to be friends. We just went to London the other day, and it was such a good fun. It's just, she's such a warm character, and she does bring the best out of the people around her. And there's someone who came in so pessimistic, to be surrounded by someone so warm brought that side out in me, and I just never want to lose it. And I always remember every day I just wake up being so grateful that I've had that lesson, just to be grateful for the things you are in life, to be less sensitive and less defensive, more positive and open about how you feel. Because I was very closed off, and I wouldn't even give her a cuddle. And another podcast called Shits and Giggles, whatever they're called, Shits and Gigs.
Shits and Gigs, yeah.
That's it. They were saying, boy Mafs, Thomas is so insecure. This girl's asking for a cuddle, and he doesn't think she would want a cuddle from him. And it's true. Yeah. I was so desperately insecure, I couldn't even recognise that she was extending the olive branch, that she was wanting affection, and I just couldn't give it because of how closed off and guarded I was. And after the experiment had finished, I'd realised I'd been able to really give her my heart completely and wholly, and that's something I don't think I've ever really done to that level before. And
that is so beautiful.
And it's because of her. She's just a brilliant person, that I'm always going to treasure her as a friend because of that.
I think what's really lovely about that is that, you've learnt that you were in protector mode, that you were definitely putting someone forward to protect the hurt part of you that had been through that difficult relationship. And that sense of not being able to let go and trust is really always about self-protection. It's not about Rozz in the beginning. If you weren't giving her cuddles, as the Shits and Gigs guy said, it's about you just trying to work out whether this is safe. And I think once she provided a safe space enough for you, you were able to lean into that relationship. And I think, although it's sad when we're all engaged with a relationship to see that it doesn't work out, I think importantly what's happened is that you've got a great friend out of it. And I asked you off camera, and I'll say this again, obviously you and Rozz are very, very good friends now, and you enjoy each other's company, and I know you're not dating right now and you don't want to, you've got lots of things that you're working on, but in the future, if you meet someone who you fall in love with and they fall in love with you, but they're not comfortable with your friendship with Rozz because it's been such a public relationship, and they would have seen you publicly upset about that coming, not splitting up because you're still friends, but you know what I mean, ending that phase of it. How would you feel if they went, no, I can't be with you if you're still friends with Rozz? What would your response be to that?
It's one of those things where I can't imagine what I would do until I cross that bridge, because I can't even fathom myself dating at this point in time.
Yes.
I'm just so focused on myself at this point in time. I don't even know what a relationship would even look like. I can't. It's not within the realm of possibility, right? It's like asking me, do you want to jump to the moon?
Yes.
I'd love to jump to the moon,
but you can't imagine it.
I can't imagine it.
Yeah.
But all analogies aside. No, she's my friend, and she's my friend first. If someone has a problem with that, then that's within the realm of their insecurity, which I'd obviously trying to cure. But no one should ask someone to sacrifice their friends.
I agree. I do.
And just because we had a relationship, we also shared an extremely different experience.
Yeah.
That no one else will ever share.
No.
Only a handful of people in the world have ever done what we've done.
Yeah.
And I will never sacrifice my friendship with Rozz.
Yeah.
If someone feels insecure, because we are just friends.
So what makes someone want... I know you said it wasn't really about telling, it was about the experiences. But I know this, and I know some people might doubt this because clearly I run a podcast where I'm quite vocal, but I don't think I could do something like TV, only because of what's, I said that I referenced the impact of what's happened for Roz, where she's been quite, bullied or whatever, based on a show that she's done. And I would be petrified of that. I don't think fame is always what it looks like. I think it's a lot darker than that at times, from what I know. And I don't think I could deal with it. I think the level of criticism would be too much for me. And so doing a podcast is one thing, because you're not seen by millions. You might be seen by thousands, not millions. And it's a very different thing because it's about you, really, not me. So did you understand you've actually come out really well, as you've said, and you feel really lucky for it. But did you understand the risk that you were taking when you said yes?
Yeah, especially within the field I work within, it could have ruined me.
Yeah.
And it's already cost me a lot doing this, but I just thought the fear of missing out is greater than the risk of financial reward. You can always make more money.
That's so interesting. That's what makes me interested in anyone that does a reality TV show, because now we understand the sort of online trolling and how that impacts the way people perceive you. But you said there the fear of missing out was stronger, which tells us a little bit about your personality. And I want to give context to your personality now, because I think you haven't had what I would call the standard average kind of start school at 4, finish at 18, linear experience. You've had quite a different background. And I don't know how much you're willing to talk about that, but I know, for example, you told me that your dad had been extremely successful financially and in terms of business success as well. And that I won't go into that. I'll let you tell that story if you want to, but I know you said it's a hard act to live up to. But because of his work and the lifestyle, you were an expat. And what was the other? You said a third
culture kid.
Third culture kid.
A third culture kid is when you have parents from one culture, you are from another culture, and you grow up in a third.
Oh, wow. I've never heard that phrase before. How have I got to 45 years old and never heard that phrase?
Because it's very esoteric, isn't it? It's very obscure.
Yeah.
You don't meet many people like that.
No. So that's really interesting. And so your first few years, where were you growing up?
So until the age of about 10, 11, I grew up in the UK, in deepest Wiltshire. And my dad actually was working at some point in Saudi Arabia. And we tested the waters going out to live there for a few weeks. And my mum detested it. She said it was like living in a fishbowl because you have to live in a compound.
Right.
And you can't leave that compound. The rules are very different out there.
Yeah.
So you have to be very respectful of them, and it's quite dangerous.
Yeah.
It's quite dangerous, especially when you don't belong, you're not from there, and people don't necessarily want you there as an expat. Which is not to say that they were very hateful towards us, but we're different.
Yeah.
Different cultures, and maybe the morals do not align.
Yes.
So Mum didn't like it because I think it was more the apparel she had to wear. She had to wear a burqa,
right?
And she didn't really appreciate that. So we moved back to the UK, and Dad got another job in Indonesia and ultimately said, come out. And we did. So we moved to Indonesia. About 5-6 years. And then because I couldn't get a visa to stay in Indonesia whilst my dad's contract was finishing, because he was going to go to Burma, I went to boarding school instead. So since the age of 16, I've never lived with my entire family.
Interesting.
Or my family never lived. That was the last time we all lived together, when I was 16.
Wow. How does that work then? I mean, obviously that's your normal, but in terms of if you were going to compare to what appears to be, at least if your parents aren't living together, they're like 20 minutes away. For you, there's quite a lot of distance if your dad's in Saudi Arabia, and how does that shape you, do you think?
I think you become very independent, hyper vigilant to that independence. So when going on the show, it's quite funny. You had a lot of people who never left home, never left, never left living where they lived.
Yeah.
Whereas for me, it's like, okay, I've done this before.
Yeah.
Let's get to it. It's fine. Pack the suitcase. We know what we need. We know what we don't. So everyone was saying, Thomas, you've only got 2 small suitcases. How have you filled your stuff in there? It's like, I only have what I need in there.
I've done this before. Hilarious. We're aligning.
So, yeah, I've had that experience of just moving all over the world, because this is actually a really funny story. So, because I was going back and forth between Edinburgh and Indonesia so often, I remember coming back from Indonesia once, and I remember seeing a security guard with a gun, with a customs officer standing at the gate, and I'm like, who was that for? It was for me. I was 16 years old, and they were saying, look, where have you come from? I said, I've come from Indonesia. And I'm like, why are you here? Go to school here. Like, how old are you? 16. I was to my passport, like, you look a bit older. I'm like, what? What's going on here? So I got taken into an interrogation room, and I think they were implying that they were asking if I was bringing any drugs in, because I was going back and forth between Indonesia and Edinburgh so often.
Oh, wow.
And I've got a foreign last name. My last name's Greek.
Yeah. How do you pronounce that, by the way?
Kriaras.
Kriaras. Because I didn't actually say it at the beginning of the podcast for a reason. I wasn't sure.
It's one of those things. It looks easy until you actually say it. It's just phonetically so obscure. So don't worry. Everyone has that issue. I remember people put a V in there sometimes. Kriaras. That's what they say. I'm
right.
like, where have you got that V from, bro?
Yeah.
Where have you got that V from, bro? So in this interrogation room, questioning me, I'm like, I was only in there for half an hour, to be fair, because I think they just saw, he's just a 16-year-old kid. I'm like, I want to live.
I want to live.
I've got so much to give.
Do you know I'm going to be on the telly in a few years?
Bro, 10 years from now, you'll know who I am.
Yeah. That's brilliant.
So that was quite funny. So I lived a full life by the time I was 16.
Yeah.
I got my diving license when I was 14 in separate islands. I've climbed Anak Krakatau, which is an active volcano, which now doesn't exist because it blew up.
Oh, my life.
I remember when you're climbing up this volcano, you had the geologist saying, by the way, guys, if it starts shaking, walk backwards. So if a rock comes towards you, you can dodge it. Bro, we shouldn't be here.
Yeah, health and safety.
Anyone who has a Greek dad knows you get put in dangerous situations for a holiday. And you have to do it. You don't have a choice.
Resilience, you see.
I remember one time when I was 8 years old. It's a place called Knossos. It's an ancient Greek civilization. And there's these lovely temples. And my dad was saying, Thomas, get on it. I want to take a picture. I'm like, oh, okay, bro. Getting on it. And then I'm having a security guard whistle at me, going, get off. And my dad's like, no, get on. Thomas, get on right now. And I'm like crying. Because I've got 2 people of authority in my life telling me to do conflicting things. I have no clue what to do. That's the experience of having a Greek dad.
Wow.
It's funny.
Why do you think your dad was insisting that you went against the rules?
He just wanted a nice picture of me.
He wants what he wants.
He wants what he
Were
wants.
you crying in the picture?
Yes.
Everyone's got those pictures. I don't want to do this.
Oh, no. But don't worry. Well, how old was I? In 20 years from then, I'll be crying on national television.
Yeah, it's a theme.
It's a theme. Don't know me.
But I think, actually, on that note, just to go back to the crying on national, I think that, I said to you earlier, I think it was, Rozz maybe got some stick because people just didn't want to see you cry, because it's hard to see you cry.
I think people were so overly critical of Rozz for no reason.
Yeah.
I understand why they don't want the person she's with to be upset.
Mm.
However, we need to be honest with people when in relationships, especially for the reasons why we're ending them.
Yeah.
And when people were criticizing her for it, it sends out this message that, no, we shouldn't be honest.
I know. What is she supposed to do?
And she did nothing wrong. She was open and honest at every point in that situation. And I remember one time there was Love-Hate Week.
Mm. Originally,
they producers suggested, Rozz is really honest. Why don't you put that in the hate section? Because I was struggling to put what I wanted to put in the hate section. I was like, no, I don't hate that. That's my love. I really like how honest she is, because I know where I stand with her.
Yeah.
At every point in this really difficult experiment.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that, it drives you crazy, because you have someone who has uncertain intentions that determine whether you're still there or not.
I mean, I do see that sometimes on that show and just think, isn't it just fairer to be, compassionately honest, which I felt she was.
She was.
And you could see she was tortured by it. It wasn't like she just said, oh, I've finished with him now, don't care. She was upset about it.
Because I can understand from her perspective. No, she even admitted it herself. She still had feelings.
Yeah.
But something had changed and she had to do what was right for her.
Just a switch that flicked.
Yeah. And what's right for her is right for me.
Yes.
Because if she's not feeling it, she shouldn't be indentured to be with me just because I was nice to her for a bit.
No.
Well, that's silly.
But also, I suppose the plus side of this is because you did have, I think, a very good edit. It shone very well on you. I'm sure there are girls all over the place that are just a bit like, when you're, especially after you've declared that you're not dating for a while, but when you're ready, Thomas, there'll be girls queuing up because they've seen that you can be a very nice boyfriend.
True, however, they can all stay over there.
You're not ready.
Stay over there. I can stay over here. This is the line. Do not cross the line.
He's definitely not dating. That's clear.
Honestly, it's like no. But when it comes to the edit, I've never felt so much guilt for how they edited me. Because I remember, especially at the beginning, Rozz was so funny, lovely, bubbly, and if it wasn't for her just being there for me, especially during the honeymoon, which was really hard for me, and it was hard for her as well.
Yeah.
I would have probably left. I was just like, nah, it's too much. Just because, again, not TV ready. Neither of us were.
Well, no. Who is?
Well, people who've done TV before.
Well, yeah, if you've done it and you've got some media training, it's fair enough, but you haven't.
And the amount of just... Because all the blame was put onto her, when that wasn't the case.
So why do you feel guilty?
I felt guilty because they could have shown me in a negative light because they had the content. I wasn't perfect.
Give context to that though.
So, what's a good example? We were having we did have an argument a few times on the honeymoon, and it was about, and I was quite defensive, and they could have spun it in a way for why Rozz might not have liked me by showing how defensive I was about certain things that were said that she didn't mean. Yeah. And this is an example, and it just killed me to see how much hate she was getting for no reason. Okay,
but then you're taking on, in my book, guilt for the way that people are treating her, not necessarily like, okay, they could show you being defensive, but then at the end of the day, they've got what? I don't know how many hours they're filming, 12 hours a day. They can only pick an hour, so they're going to pick what they believe will give the context to the person. Now, sometimes that hasn't been appreciated by some of the previous cast members, and I can understand why. But in your case, they picked what they thought was your true character, I guess. And that's someone else's perception of you, which perception is everything. But the guilt that you feel, I think, is that you're trying to say, if I'm right, and tell me if I'm wrong, that you feel that Rozz got a raw end of the deal. But I don't think she was edited badly. I just think there's some people out there that don't understand the concept of honesty for the sake of, being able to grow. And I know from talking to you today that you've noticed some things in yourself that you want to grow from in terms of getting over the past relationship and perhaps not being as ready for a new relationship as you thought you were. So with that being said, the guilt is probably misplaced. I think you're probably just frustrated that Rozz has ended up taking some stick for something she didn't really do wrong. Is that fair to say?
No, I it's fair. I just don't... Again, I'm too close to it, right?
Yeah.
I'm biased because she is a lovely person.
And she is. You can see that. Anyone that doesn't see that is, I don't know, perhaps too caught up in the fairy tale of TV rather than the reality of let's be honest and let's be authentic. And I think she was. So I think it depends who's watching it. Yeah. And it's not about her then, is it? It's about, if I'm watching it and thinking she's lovely and thinking you're lovely, that's about me. If someone else watches it and attacks her, that's about them.
Yeah, it's just disgusting comments that don't need to be made, which are completely untrue.
Do you know some of them? Is it about her being not a very nice person then? Is that what people are saying?
Just chastising her, saying, oh, why hasn't it worked? Why couldn't you make it work? He's such a lovely person. But just because I'm nice to you doesn't mean you necessarily have to be with me. She shouldn't be indentured to be my wife just because we had fun together, we've laughed, and I haven't been toxic and nasty to her. It's just not how it works. If something doesn't feel right, and it's not right for her, it's right for me that she ends it. And that's
So true. I think people are living their own romance through you two guys, because it was a beautiful relationship to watch. And if you're not happy in your own relationship, or perhaps you're single, you're counting on Rozz and Thomas, because that's true love then. And they would devastate.
Yeah, it was sad it ended, but I got so much more out of this whole experience than I thought I would get. I thought, I might end up with a girlfriend. Oh, that'd be really nice. I never thought, oh God, I would have to confront foundations and pillars of my character that I needed to improve on, and actually come out of this process much happier than we came in. And I came out feeling happy and fulfilled in myself, but just sad that it didn't work out with me and Rozz. But and then after the reunion, knowing Rozz and I will be friends, because I remember that time between me leaving the show and then the reunion, which was 2 months, I was scared Rozz and I wouldn't be friends. It wouldn't work.
Yes.
But being around her again just showed, I really do enjoy being around this person. She's just such an amazing person, and she is my friend. I'm going to keep this girl as my friend. I'm going to do anything to keep her as a friend, because she gave me like so much happiness and joy. Same thing with people like JJ, Luke, Paul, George, Matt. They're going to be my friends forever.
Yeah, it's lovely.
Because I love them so much, and you have to surround yourself with people who make you better.
Yeah, you do. And who reflect who you want to be as well. And I think, we had a lovely chat about that today. I think it's really important for personal growth to choose the people that reflect how you genuinely feel you are, and to not listen to the clutter and the clatter of other people's opinions. And you only truly know yourself when you start choosing who you want to be around, because you see your reflection in them. And obviously these guys that you've mentioned there, you feel really good around.
Yeah, 100%. So for example, Terence, who was a shame wasn't on the show for longer.
Yeah, but he made don't get me wrong, I thought Portia had some, class and style, and I know there were some things there that some people might disagree with. But I thought Terence did it brilliantly. He was like, no, this isn't against Portia at all here, but he just made a decision, and he didn't stay there for the limelight. He got out when he felt it was right to get out.
And he's been such a huge supporter. And I just feel like, again, Terence is one of those people who's going to be in my life for a very long time. Yeah. Forever, because he is there for you.
That's so lovely.
And he's always there to give you advice. And it was weird, because on the show we were ships in the night. So I'd always come back and he's just left after speaking to Rozz for a bit, or I've left because I have to do filming. And he's just come in. He's like, "Where's Thomas? I'm trying to find Thomas."
Oh, that's so cute.
And he's always been my biggest supporter. He's my hype man.
That's lovely, because I got that sense from what I could see of him. The first, couple of episodes or whatever, I wasn't sure, because again, you're seeing people build, and their characters are starting to come out. But I honestly felt, again, not against Portia, because I don't know what happened in their relationship, but he made that decision to go, and I think it was Paul or someone was asking him to stay, weren't they? Just give it another go, and he was like, "No, I've made my decision. I'm going." And you got to respect that.
Yeah, you do have to really respect that, because he could have just said, "You know what, Portia? Let's make a pact. Let's stay till the end.
Yeah.
Let's make the most of this. Let's get some financial remuneration after the show finishes, and just stay till the end. You can just keep it. You can sleep on the couch. I'll sleep on the couch."
Yeah.
No, he was true to himself. He realised this isn't right for me. I've given it my all, and that was his all. And I really do respect that. But it was quite funny. I remember I was talking to Rozz about this quite a long time ago, and we were saying we were the only ones who left in the normal way.
Yeah.
We were the only ones who left because we both put leave.
That's really interesting.
Because whilst JJ and Bianca did both put leave, JJ came back.
Of course he did, yeah.
Because of his relationship with Ella. So it's quite fascinating that this season, Rozz and I were the only ones who left in the conventional manner.
And you're still really good friends.
I'm so glad we're really good friends. She's just, makes me laugh. I'll wake up to one morning and I'll get just a funny text or a meme that she's tagged me in. And it's just like,
that reminds me. I know this is about you, Thomas, but I've got to tell you this. I've got to tell you this. It made me laugh so much. So Luke had sent this. He shared it on his Instagram. Right. He'd sent us some voice notes I don't know if you saw. You must have seen this.
Which one?
It was on his page. He'd sent some voice notes, and he kept saying to her, "Do you remember that night when me, you, and Jay all went to?" And he kept stopping it. He kept not finishing the sentence.
With Rozz.
And she was going, I won't do her accent, but she was going, "Luke, will you stop it?" Because he
Can you
wouldn't
tell
finish
me?
it.
Yeah.
It just cracked me up. That's my silly sense of
Yeah.
humour. And I just saw her sense of humour and thought, actually, I think that, if I'm being honest, to give credit where credit's due, I think that's when I started to pay more attention to you and her.
Really?
Because up until that point, on the actual show, I don't think much had been shown.
No.
And it was at the same kind of time that I started to really pay attention. And I saw the comedy in your relationship, like how you would be quite playful. Well, very playful, actually. I don't know. This is an adults only bit. Very playful.
Definitely, because, and again, that's what really frustrated me, especially in the early days.
Yeah.
Right at the beginning of the show, they weren't showing Rozz's lighter side, her having a laugh.
Yeah.
They were only showing the doer side to our actual relationship. But it's like we struggled, but we weren't struggling because we didn't like each other. We were struggling with the situation.
Of course.
We did both realise, there's a difference between how the cameras are making us feel, how the situation is making us feel, and how we're making each other feel.
Yeah.
And we realised, no, like, we're okay with each other. We just need to work on our communication with one another.
Yes.
But the situation is so stressful. It's hard to be yourself until you get used to it.
Yeah.
And as we warmed up the cameras, but she, like, off camera, I remember it was on our honeymoon. I think it was like second day filming or third day, something like that. And we were both just cringing so hard at things we'd said and what we thought might come up on the show. And I had the pillow over my head just going, oh God. And Roz was just sitting there laughing with me. And that's where we bonded most, just when we were in bed, cameras are away, and we're just able to chat and have, just enjoy each other's company. And apparently when we were going to sleep that night, she woke up and heard me just going, oh God, my sleep.
I'm not surprised, because you do things without realising you're doing it. I know that to be true now. When you're in your sleep, God, I mean, you send messages and all sorts.
Oh God, yeah, like you'd sent me. I replied to your message. I don't know how I replied to that message. I was like, it was quite coherent as well. Everything spelled right.
I know it did. I really did do a lol when you said I don't even remember sending
Sorry,
it.
I don't even remember saying that. Responding to my, what was it about again? What did I say?
I don't even know. I can't remember. I think we've both wiped it from our memories. I thought, this is just a bit, bless him. We'll just pretend it didn't happen, and then I publicly outed you. But it was something very coherent, and I was like, oh wow, I can't remember what you said now. It was definitely clean. That's what I do know.
It's definitely clean.
It was definitely clean. That I would remember if it wasn't. But no, I'm kind of, I think it's just really nice to know that you two are still friends, because it was beautiful, and she is funny.
Yeah.
And you two did, I think you made, no disrespect to anybody else, I do think you made that season. And for me, having watched it, for a long time in the Australian one, I think that I'm stuttering now, I'm nervous to say it, but I think there have been some changes made in the production of it, which has changed it for those of us that have watched it for a long time and perhaps a little bit older. And so it was nice to see that there was that groundedness with you two, and I think I appreciated that as a watcher. But going back to the early days, one thing I wanted to reference was the fact that you've lived all over the place, and then you ended up going to boarding school, as you've referenced. One thing that I hope you're comfortable to talk about is the fact that you'd often been told that you weren't very clever. Is that, I'm wording that, paraphrasing, but give us more context to that.
Yeah, obviously I told you what happened, but it was really mad. So I remember when I was in primary school, I was put in the lower sets for everything. And I remember I was put in assisted reading as well. And it was just a very odd experience. So I was like, I guess I'm just not clever. Just not one of those people. But then when I went to secondary school, I remember I was put in the remedial classes, and I was able to do the work, and people around me weren't. And I had teachers saying, well, you shouldn't be here. And I was put into the top sets for everything, from remedial set 5, set 6 and everything, to set 1 and set 2, and then we some people might not remember them, but we do CATS tests.
Yeah.
And I got put in the top 10th percentile.
So for people that don't understand that, tell them what that means.
So that means top 10% of achievers in the UK in terms of academic performance.
Yeah.
So simultaneously, I was put in assisted reading because of my primary school's recommendations, and gifted and talented classes because of these tests, whilst in set 1 and set 2 for maths and English, which is such a confusing feeling.
Yeah.
So then when I moved to Indonesia, it very much happened again. I was putting, top sets for everything, and then over the years they dropped me down. So I remember I got a 100% in my English coursework, and I was in set 4 for English.
So
I don't understand the disparity in treatment versus achievement, and it was always very much a.
So you were achieving basically 100% whilst being in one of the bottom sets, to put it simply.
Mm-hmm.
And was that a mistake that ran through your education? Like basically the files that were handed to each school were wrong. Is that potentially the case?
I think what they see is someone who's not paying attention.
Right.
But someone who is paying attention but in their own way.
Yes.
So I don't know. I've been told I have a resting bitch face. And I can't hide how I feel.
So if you're
face.
Bored, it shows.
I can't hide it. If I don't want to be there, I can't hide it.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time I was like that. So I think what would happen was if I wasn't interested in something, I wouldn't pay attention. So in those classes, they would see someone not paying attention. But whilst I'd perform ultimately in these finals, it was irrelevant by then because they hadn't noticed I could actually achieve.
Well, it sounds a bit like, I don't know if you know this, but my listeners do. I use hypnotherapy as a tool for my psychotherapy, and EMDR as well, which is all brain-based stuff. Mm-hmm. But the reason I referenced hypnotherapy is because when we are in a very relaxed state and brainwave activity is slower, we bypass the analytical thinking. And so it's when the subconscious or the back of the mind absorbs the information, and with repetition, the neurons fire and wire together. And to get, I think clinically the best time to learn is about 2 hours before you fall asleep, because your brain is much slower in terms of brainwave activity. And it's why sometimes people work really beautifully with white noise as well, because it relaxes them. So what's interesting is that you could have just been in quite a relaxed state, not necessarily vigilantly paying attention, but the back of your mind is absorbing the information. And so when it came to tests and so on, you were able to just bring it out the bag.
I ultimately do think it comes down to the fact that I'm a crammer.
Yeah. So my beautiful explanation just goes out the window.
If it's a subject I'm really engaged with, yes.
Yeah.
But ultimately, when it comes to things like geometry and terribly boring subjects like that, it does just go in. But I have to do it myself.
So you thrive in chaos?
I thrive in chaos. My life is organised mess.
Chaos, yeah.
Organised chaos. We live in the depths of depravity when it comes to our organisation. And especially because I did my dissertation the night before it was due. And especially at university, I remember I did my financial trading dissertation, which is about, I think it was like 4,000 words. The morning it was due. So
the morning it was due.
I started writing at 9 o'clock and I finished by 2 o'clock. And I got first in that essay.
You're that person that we all love to hate, who just wings it.
I think it's just because, some people like to work slowly on a project. But if for me, I would come back to that project and I have no clue what I was writing here, and it wouldn't make sense. So for me, it was easier just to do it all in one sitting.
I have to admit, I'm exactly the same, Thomas.
I find it so difficult to do something over a long period of time that doesn't require a lot of energy. I can write an essay in 3-4 hours.
No, I'm the same. I do think I work under pressure. I'm not saying it's healthy, everybody, before I get told off, because I know it's probably not healthy. But for some reason, I live off my stress response. I live off my cortisol. And so when it comes to learning, again, I'm easily distracted. Of course,
Really?
Everyone's had that in their school report, that I'm that person. So I have to be really passionate about the subject. And of course, when I am, I can pull it out of the bag like that.
And this is what I found so odd about school. I remember my effort levels had not changed one bit, and I was being told underachieving in what's the word? The different categories that the schools you would use. And then one term, it was, he's doing great, he's paying attention. I'm like, I'm doing the same stuff.
Yeah, you knew yourself.
I haven't changed.
Yeah.
What's
it's you guys that have changed.
No, I think they just, because it would be at the beginning of the term, they think he's not paying attention, but then we're actually seeing he's doing well.
Yeah.
So we can't say he's not paying attention.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was like, school was very weird for me. I always found I had this cognitive dissonance between what people were saying and what I felt about what was going on at school. So we're glad school's over.
Oh God, I said to you before, like I reference the education system a lot, not because I think that we shouldn't have an education system, because I think we should, obviously. Like, it's really helpful.
No. Everyone, go to the streets and make some money. Go graft.
5 years old, get out there and start washing cars.
Money's money.
Money's money, however you earn it.
Wait, not prostitution.
Oh, well, actually, we could talk about that. I mean, I'm not talking about prostitution, but if it's...
Are you telling me I need to do OnlyFans? Right, guys?
I mean, if...
OnlyFans, I get my feet out.
Oh my gosh, you're not that type of person, are
Hobbit
you?
feet.
Yeah, there are people that will watch, so you could earn a crust. But I don't believe, with your masters being collected this week,
Yes.
I don't believe that's probably the best move.
Oh, making money through feet pics. OnlyFans is just a vehicle for that investment.
I mean, would you?
No.
Would
No.
you? Even if someone said to you, right, I'm going to pay you £5,000 for a picture of your feet, would you do it?
I mean, someone has offered £600 for my dirty socks.
What?
So he kept sending messages and I was ignoring them, but can only send 3 messages, for example, on TikTok. So then he made another account to up it and then go, I've only got one more message. What do you want? Name any price. I'm just like, I'm not giving you my suede gym socks. They are mine for me to sniff. No, I'm kidding. For me, I have a really strong moral compass and I can't delve into stuff like that. I wouldn't be able to live with myself.
Yeah, for someone giving you 600 quid. Would you do it for charity though? If you said, I tell you what, I will take that £600, but I'm going to give it to a charity that's really close to my heart. You can have my dirty socks.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have to push the boundaries here.
Yeah, look, if it's for charity, if it feeds children.
Yes.
Okay.
If your dirty socks can feed some children,
exactly,
you'll do it.
Otherwise it would just go towards my KFC addiction. But, so seriously, if it's for charity, sure, have my dirty socks. Okay, I am very utilitarian. If there is a cost benefit and the benefit outweighs the cost, sure.
Okay, so that's for anyone that wants your dirty socks listening to this episode.
Oh, what have I started? No one listens to this.
Don't worry, I've only got one listener.
What, you?
Yeah, it's just me. So you won't be in trouble there. I think what's funny about that is that your moral compass it's a good thing, but when you see everything's perception, move that compass a little bit, just feed some children, suddenly we'll all do something for money, as long as the ethics behind it are right.
That's quite right. There's some deontological ideas there that I do see myself do, but I'm a utilitarian.
Yes, yeah.
Oh, I love my, it has to, the total cost has to outweigh the total
I get
benefit.
I get it. I mean, in terms of OnlyFans, and I referenced this a little bit because I know on the show, Georges and Peggy had a thing about whether he would accept her doing that kind of work, and she was sort of, no, whatever. But I actually think for some women that don't have the financial backing of a family or an education, but they've got a really good business idea and there's no other way to get the money and they happen to be beautiful, if you're safe, I'm not going to judge that as a job, because I think if the idea of the good outweighs the bad, I just want to sort of say that, because I think there's a lot of people that feel that there's rules that should be, there's black and there's white and there's nothing in between. Well, as we've discovered today, if we can feed some starving children, there is something in between. It just goes to show. But off your dirty socks and your feet for a moment and back onto...
Let's get back on track. You're not getting my dirty socks unless children are getting fed.
Back onto the story, which is you basically kind of grew up that dichotomy of I'm not very good, but I'm getting really good results. And that must mess around with your head a little bit, because it must affect your self-esteem when people keep telling you you're not good enough, and yet you are good enough. You prove that you're good enough. It's almost like would it be fair to say that you constantly had to prove your worth?
100%. One of the reasons why I came into this process so overly defensive and quite pessimistic is because you become pessimistic to deal with the negative outcomes
Yes.
that I've often dealt with because of people's perception of me.
Yeah.
I know I'm not a bad person, and I always really struggled in the past to really understand why I'd always get just chastised, and it felt unnecessary at the time. But then I convinced myself it must be me, right? Because I'm the common denominator.
Yeah.
And it comes especially from my last relationship. So I remember, because of this entire, just it's like almost a lifetime of just having this reinforced into me. I'm the problem. It must be me because it's coming up again and again. I came into this relationship with this person she's not an evil person, not evil at all, but she destroyed me.
Okay.
And it took a long time for me to get over how angry I was, not at her but at myself, for letting someone treat me like that.
So give me some context to that, because obviously you've gone through school kind of struggling with, am I good enough? And then you get into a relationship later on, and it feels like something must have happened to challenge that within you again.
At the beginning, there were the red flags, as there always are. The volatility of will she actually want me, won't she? And that creates almost like this withdrawal when they say goodbye and then they bring you back in, and it's like getting that hit. And ultimately it came down to the fact that she just didn't like me, but she liked how I treated her. And I think that's
what didn't she like about you? Did you ever work that out?
I think so. I was quite immature, and I'm quite unusual. I'm not the most normal person in the world. I'm quite
Who is?
I'm quite eccentric. But everyone who knows me knows I'm quite eccentric. I say some very obscure things, and the way I talk is very odd. It's not very conventional.
I wouldn't say that. I've sat with you for several hours and I don't think there's anything odd about you at all. You've got a lovely voice and you're a really kind person so far. And yes, you might have a quirky sense of humour, but just so you know.
And it's like most people are open-minded and quite kind, and they just laugh it off and go, "Oh, it's just Tom. He's a character."
Yeah.
But then you have those people like her who just hated it, because for her, you have to be the norm. You have to conform.
But why is she with you then? Because you're clearly a character.
I think at the time she found something attractive about me, liked the way I treated her, but didn't like the vast majority of who I am.
That's sad.
And it's sad. It's like she was telling me I'm too short, too skinny, too foreign looking, too hairy. So it came down to the fact that you don't like me, you don't be with me. But then I remember thinking, she broke up with me about like 100 times, maybe less, a bit less. But it was like at least once or twice a week. And it came down to the fact that she was telling me, I love you, but you're doing all this that's annoying me and making me upset. So I remember I came to the conclusion, well, if this is the person who loves me and I'm doing all these things that annoy her, she's the only one who's going to put up with me.
Right. And
I convinced myself of this, and I should have and I tried a few times, just to say, no, it's over. And she would always convince me that, no, I'm sorry, I won't do that again. She'd always admit what she did was wrong. She always did.
So reflectively she could see.
Yeah.
But she couldn't change it.
No, because she fundamentally didn't like who I was. We were not compatible. And she did help me grow, but I grew for the wrong reasons with her. So I remember I was going to the gym because I didn't want her to criticize me for being skinny. I remember I emptied my childhood bedroom because I didn't want her to criticize me for being childish.
So you were trying to be the version of you that she wanted rather than just be your authentic self.
Yeah, and she didn't encourage me to be my best self for the right reasons. She did it because she said, well, I don't want to be with someone like that. And I don't blame her. I blame myself, and that's why I've been so angry at myself that I let someone do that, because it comes a point where the fire burns you. If you stick your hand in again, you're going to get burnt. You don't blame the fire. If you jump into a tiger's pen, it's going to eat you.
True, but then actually you're 27 and how long ago was this?
We broke up March 2020.
Okay, so that's now 3 years ago, so you would have been 24-ish at the time that it ended.
Yeah.
And how long were you together?
2 years.
Okay, so at 22, and by the way, between the ages of 21 and 25, the prefrontal cortex, which is analysis, logic, decision making, emotional regulation, and other things as well, but they're the main ones to think about. That usually develops fully between 21 and 25. So your prefrontal development wasn't complete, and if it was only just complete at that point, which means that you've still got a bit to learn. So when you talk about the sort of burning your hand, knowing that you're going to burn your hand, it's also a simple case of you have to learn what that feels like. And it's also a case of you don't necessarily know at that point that your value is higher.
But this is my problem, because I didn't have that foundational level of self-value. Because through no one's fault, it had been broken down. I didn't recognise my own value, and I let someone treat me like that.
Through no one's fault except for life experiences.
Yeah, it's sometimes you need to learn those lessons.
Yes.
And I just hadn't learned it yet. And it came down to the fact that I did let someone treat me like that, and I let it go on for too long because I was treating someone with unconditional. I was keeping someone in my life unconditionally, and I was left with, open wounds, emotional wounds that I brought into this experiment in Married at First Sight with Rozz. And I'm so grateful she helped me work through those. And I know now they're not an issue, but I'm just so sad with myself that I let it ruin my early 20s,
Do you have that value now?
More so than before, we all have that, I feel defeated. But I can pick myself up. And I couldn't do that before.
Because you're still sad about it. I can see your reaction. So for those that are listening, they won't be able to see you, but I can. And you can see it in the camera if you're watching. It's still a tough thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is it me questioning the self-value bit, saying about the set of experiences that you've had? I think early on, maybe being that child that lives in different places and doesn't live with his whole family all at the same time, and then I think you've had criticism throughout your life. We've referenced the school system there, and I think just varying other criticisms that you might have received and things that you've gone through, and perhaps just always feeling like you can't do enough, and that's why I referenced the school, because you may not want to talk about other things, but I know that is a clear example of you're not doing enough, and yet when you produce the goods, it's like, I am really actually super clever, but everyone keeps telling me I'm not enough. I'm in all the bottom sets. I'm having assisted reading, yet I'm in the top percentile for achievement. And I think it just messes with your head when you're growing up. The way the brain's developing around who am I, what am I, can I trust myself? All these things, and then this person comes in your life and challenges you again in a way that makes you doubt yourself. And I think you're probably still carrying those scars, which is why you said about going into Married at First Sight with Rozz and feeling like you were going in as your best self. And then you realised through her holding that safe space that actually I'm not in my full glory just yet.
Yeah. And it's just, I remember people from the show, especially the boys, just saying, Thomas, you look different. And I didn't see it right because, you don't see that change in you. And then watching it back, especially the wedding day versus the reunion. Yeah. I look happy. I look healthy.
You did, yeah.
And I didn't before.
No.
And it's because I was surrounded by so much love and positivity.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that my relationship didn't work. And that's fine because she was always there for me.
Yeah.
As a friend.
Yeah.
And it just shows that, sometimes you maybe you don't get a wife out of the experience, but I know I at least made a best friend for life, and someone who helped me find myself, even if I didn't find a wife.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful for that. I'm so grateful, and I can honestly, and it's visual.
Yes. It's
not just me sitting there going, I learned so much. It was noticed by others before it was noticed by me.
Do you know what's quite beautiful is that although you went there for a wife, I think the greater gift is that you are learning about you, because you've got to love you inside out. You've got to know who you are from your own perspective, not from others. And I think, is it fair to say other people have always been your mirror to affirm whether you're enough up until this point?
I believe so. I believe I carefully listen to the opinion of people around me to my own detriment.
Yes.
And for the first time in my life, I was surrounded by people who were just praising me.
Yeah.
But I've never had that just persistent praise about my character ever. And now that I've left the experiment, I still have these people in my life reaffirming that I am worth something, and it's almost, and the momentum that it's given me has helped me believe that myself.
And you are starting to believe that, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
You're starting to see that actually, depending on who I'm with, will equal what I feel. So therefore, there must be something that people see in me that I haven't been able to see just yet.
100%. I will now not stand for people who don't help me be my best self.
Good. That makes me happy. Yeah. Love that, by the way. That's strong.
Because I refuse to give up any more of my time. I've wasted so much time believing I'm not good enough because of the actions of people who don't care about me.
Yeah.
And I'm only going to give time to the people who show they do.
See, that's lovely. And I think that's what Rozz and the entire experience has given you, is the perspective that perhaps you were lacking.
Yeah.
And it's sad that you were lacking that perspective. But you know what? You've got it now, and it's up to you to build on that and to really make sure that you're careful with who you give your energy to. Because actually the people around you are a direct reflection of you. You said there about putting your hand in the fire, and I don't blame you. I think sometimes it's easy to say, I let it happen. But if you don't, it's like saying to a child who touches the hob, well, they knew it was hot. I told them. Yeah. Until you know what it feels like to be burned. And I think you had to come out of it to understand that you were being burned. So I will still say, for people that are in difficult relationships, be it that they're abusive relationships or just very difficult relationships, you know, retrospectively you can see it. Yeah. But at the time, it's not necessarily as clear cut as letting it happen. I'm only saying that to you because I don't want you to ever overly take responsibility for. I get the impression from talking to you that you're somebody that if you hear something enough times, you'll believe it. And that could be good or bad. So I'm just going to tell you the good stuff that I'm seeing, because you deserve to feel that, because I've only really felt that you're a good person from the communications that we've had. And I think it's important to hear that. You know, I know what it's like to not hear that and to have to build that in yourself. And when the great thing is, though, just to caveat all that sad stuff, is that when you do build yourself up and you've got people around you reminding you, you're in control now. Yep. You get to choose who you're spending your time with and what you actually listen to. You'll build something that feels so powerful because it's come from you and it's yours and no one can take that away. Once you start building it yourself, no one can take it away. If it's been, I suppose, like the perfect child syndrome, when they've heard, I think I said this to you earlier, where you're repeatedly told you're beautiful, you're beautiful, you're beautiful. And so you feel beautiful. And then the minute someone says you're not beautiful, you're like, oh, I don't know how to deal with that, because I've only ever known what it's like to be told I'm beautiful. Not me personally, but, you know, just in the story. So you could see how that person would struggle if it was too perfect. Well, because it hasn't been for you, and because there's been lots of criticism come at you from lots of different angles prior to going on telly, I think when you do build this, it's like stepping into your power. And I think you'll enjoy it so much more because you'll have created it. Yeah, I do agree there, because I don't remember where it's from, but it's a really poignant quote. It says, "We accept the love we feel we deserve." Yes, that's so true. And I really like that quote, and it's something I've kept with me because I've accepted a lot of wrongly placed love and chastising to get it. And no, I'd rather have, I think for the first time in my life, whilst I am alone, I'm not lonely. Yes. And I'm happy with where I am. And that's why I don't want to date. I just want to be on my own, because until I'm this momentum, I can make sure I'm leaving the stratosphere with it. I'm not going to let anyone in who can potentially defeat it. I love that. I think that's so powerful, and I think it's testament to your strength of character that you can sort of go through quite dark things, actually, with previous relationship by the sounds of it, and in other situations that you've experienced, I'm sure, and actually still say, no, I'm worth it. Yeah, because I do want a lovely long-term relationship, but I can't even fathom it until I know 100% in unto myself that I'm
happy with myself.
Yeah.
You really can't love someone else until you love yourself.
That's a very famous RuPaul quote, if you've ever watched RuPaul's Drag Race.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, RuPaul's my favourite person on the planet. So when you said that, I just had to throw that in.
Perfect.
Yeah,
I love it.
it's so true. You can't love yourself until no, you can love yourself. You can't love anyone else until you can truly love yourself.
Yeah, and I need to stop focusing on other stuff and put myself first. And to be fair, because that is a comment I've heard quite a lot. I think JJ says it a lot to me. He goes,
Does he?
He says you need to focus on you.
Mm.
You need to stop worrying about how other people are.
Mm.
Because it's actually a funny thing that happened on the show. So we'd have welfare come in and ask after us, make sure we're okay. And I remember one of the welfare producers did confront me. They went, "Look, Thomas, you never actually say how you are. You just talk about how everyone else is."
Mm.
And
very good observation.
It was really poignant for them to point that out, because I'd gotten to this point for years where I thought, if I don't say anything about myself, I can't be criticised. So I was a stone at the beginning of that show.
Yeah.
Nothing. You wouldn't get anything out of me. And no wonder Rozz wasn't particularly enjoying my company at the beginning. Not that she disliked me. We got on. But she wasn't getting anything from me.
Yeah.
Because I had nothing to give.
Yeah.
I wasn't ready to give anything, and she brought it out of me because she, like you said, made me feel safe. And she's just a brilliant person. And very few people have made me feel that way, as in safe. To be myself in a very long time, especially after my last relationship, who literally would brutalize me for using a word she didn't understand. It would get, I remember one time I'd organised this birthday weekend, safari park in the morning, this spa in Bath midday, like rooftop heated spa, like
amazing,
phenomenal.
Next time you're there, I'll come.
I was there last Thursday.
Damn,
you missed it. I didn't get to see me in my blue Speedos. and then I booked this Michelin star restaurant afterwards.
Wow. Next time, don't forget to dial my number.
So we had to get up early for Safari Park. I didn't tell her what it was. Surprised. She goes, "Oh, it's for children." Okay, didn't enjoy it. On the way out, I said a word. I said I was referring to like the foliage as a brush.
Yeah.
I don't remember what I was even talking about. I just said I mentioned the brush. And then for about half an hour on the way to Bath, she was just brutalising me, saying I deliberately using words she doesn't understand to make her feel dumb. And she doesn't, just completely destroying my character. And I'm just there really frustrated. It's hot. I'm having to park. It's Bath. It's busy.
Yes.
And she's not helping me. She's just like criticising me. And then she started crying, saying she's wanted going home, when I'm just there like, well, I haven't done anything. I haven't said anything. And then she goes, "I don't want to go to Thermi Spa." I'll go in there. She complains, says it's too busy. It cost me like, I think, 300, 400 quid.
Wow.
And then when we got back to the house to get ready for dinner, she's like, "I'm not going." Well, it's £50 deposit. And then I was like, "Oh, well, it was my fault. I ruined it." And then the next week I spent £1,600 to book us to this one night stay in this spa resort. And she complained about spending £75 on champagne. She insisted on paying for, to the point where I just transferred her the money because I didn't want any complaints. So this is what I dealt with when it was meant to be good.
So with that being said, I always say this to people, and it's very simple, and everyone's heard this before, I'm sure, but if she felt that you were trying to make her feel dumb, it's probably because she was embarrassed that she didn't know the meaning of that word. And rather than just go, "Oh, sorry, I don't know what that means," or "I've never heard that word before," she projected that insecurity onto you. And then I think because she'd created that energy within herself of frustration, by the time you got to the spa, there was nothing that she could do to bring herself out. She obviously couldn't bring herself out when she got there, and then made it about you and it being your fault, which isn't fair. And I always say this, like, even when I've been frustrated or upset and I felt reactive in terms of emotional reactivity, you have to know that no one can make you feel something you don't already feel in yourself. I mean, you could say anything to me and I won't take it personally, because if I do agree with you, by the way, and it touches a raw nerve, I'll admit that. And I think that's just a really authentic way to live, is just to admit where you see your flaws are. I could tell you 1,000 flaws that I've got, and you could say to me that you didn't like them, and I'd say, well, that's understandable. I probably wouldn't like it if I was on, the receiving end of one of my flaws. But we're all human and we all have them. And I think what she was unable to do was to take responsibility and accountability, and you took that on. You end up, I suppose, it feels like, anyway, you end up taking on far too much responsibility for other people's feelings, and then you internalize that, self-abandon, and see it as you.
Yeah, I just haven't been lucky enough to be surrounded until now by people who actually appreciated me.
Yeah.
And maybe there's an element of me pushing away people who actually gave me that affection and love because I didn't feel I deserved it.
Yeah.
So I can't blame anyone, but I can, because all I can do is take accountability for my behaviour. Because I do know over the last 3-4 years since I've been single, there have been beautiful and amazing people who've come into my life that I haven't worked on keeping them in my life and maybe pushed them away because they didn't meet this incredibly high spec criteria. A good example of that is I was seeing this girl. She lived in Croydon. She's successful in what she was doing, and I was making a lot of effort. I was in Loughborough at the time, and I was taking the train to Croydon. Long trip.
That's a very long trip.
Long trip, but I was like, it was worth it. But I remember saying to myself, I'm not going to sleep with her until I'm actually seeing her exclusively. And so we saw each other a few times, and she was like, oh, okay, why aren't we sleeping together? I was like, I explained it, and it got to the point where she checked out. She
didn't want to wait.
She just went, okay, yeah. So I could see she basically moved on in her mind after I saw her last, and she wasn't very responsive to what I was saying. So I was like, okay, fine. Well, I'm just ignoring her. And ultimately, it came down to the fact that, well, no, actually, she just was feeling like I wasn't making the effort.
She felt rejected.
She felt rejected. And it could have easily been resolved with communication, but I know what I'm like. If something becomes too difficult, I just go, okay.
And that's your protector self coming up again, like the shits and gigs guys.
Yeah.
You're like, I don't want to be hurt here, so I'm going to put that barrier there. And that way I can't disappoint or be disappointed.
Because it's like, I take that theory of if they want to, they will, too seriously, to the point where I make zero effort.
Is it that you're making zero effort, or are you suppressing?
I would say I'm suppressing the effort. So I'd go, I want to do this, but no. If they want it, they'll do it. And when really it's a two-way street. Relationships are two-way streets.
So you're still stuck. You're stuck in the idea that unless it's like very, very obvious, you can't trust that you're enough for that person.
Yeah, and that's certainly what happened at the beginning, because with Rozz and myself, we went from 0 to 100, because there was something there, and we just didn't explore it in a healthy way because I wasn't giving her anything. So I have to take responsibility for that. If I want a relationship potentially in the future, that I need to give a little bit to get more instead of expect everything immediately.
What's great about that is you are 27 and you're open to that. You understand that. So that's really difficult to understand about yourself, by the way, that you're doing stuff that might be to your own detriment. And so to be open to that is a really important step, and to understand that you need to do some self-growth and really choose who you want to be around and choose the environments you want to be in and learn about yourself through those choices. But I think also what's really powerful about that is that I would say that more than half the work is already done in the fact that you've acknowledged that and that you want to change that. You've definitely got a lot of plans moving forward. So tell the listeners about your other interests outside of love and all those wonderful things. But you, as you said, you're collecting your masters this week.
So we've finished our masters. Woo! And we're going to go to the graduation on Friday. I'm so excited. It's going to be so fun. Just because Luke and Rozz are coming.
Oh, that's lovely.
So the two people, like Luke has had a lot of flack.
Yes.
I will say, I actually want to just say Luke is such a beautiful man.
Oh, that's nice to hear.
And he was the reason that Rozz and I were able to communicate at the beginning. He was the bridge that allowed us to grow.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't have gotten as far as we did personally and with each other if it wasn't for Luke and Jay.
Wow.
Keeping us together at the beginning.
That's
encouraging
really
us.
interesting because actually the edit of Luke perhaps doesn't do him justice then.
No, the edit. I always say the edit can only show what happened, and it can only not show what happened, and it didn't show a lot of what happened.
Okay, so the bits we saw were true, but it was not in context with the bits that we didn't see.
It's not holistic. So if you saw my relationship with Rozz, you would think we never laughed.
Yeah.
But we laughed every day.
Yeah.
We had so much fun. For example, we when we were sledding, I was bossy, but it was funny. We were laughing the entire time.
Yeah.
It was a good joke. But so, for example, with Luke, it didn't show how amazing and supportive he was of Rozz and myself.
Yeah.
He was always saying, I think they're the best matched.
Yeah.
He was always making sure Rozz was okay. Because I think with Rozz, because she didn't trust me at the beginning, because she didn't know who I was a stranger.
Yeah.
She needed that support from our friends until she could find that trust in me as well.
But what's interesting about Luke, and I think you're right, I think that's so, for you, that's obviously always going to be a beautiful little connection you've got with Luke.
Yeah.
Because he had your back.
Yeah.
But what was interesting about that is Luke was doing really well, I think. And I think in terms of his reception, he was well received up until Jordan. Yeah. I nearly forgot his name then, but sorry, Jordan, if you're listening. I seem to nearly forget. But there seemed to be a massive clash, which I remember thinking at the time, there was something over JJ and Ella.
Yeah.
And Nathaniel. And then Jordan was sort of saying that JJ was wrong or something. I can't remember. It was around the dinner table anyway. And Luke was very defensive over JJ. And I remember even saying on a podcast at the time that I believe that maybe there was just something going on behind the scenes with Luke's and JJ's relationship, that they knew each other really well. So Luke was perhaps more biased towards JJ than he was Jordan. I don't know. In
Luke's defence, I do believe there's a level of indication in defence for JJ.
Yeah.
I believe that it wasn't for Jordan to deliver the news of what happened to Bianca when JJ wanted to do it himself.
Yes.
So there was a level of Jordan should have said to JJ, look, I know this is being discussed. Are you going to say it to Bianca? Because if you don't, I will.
Yes.
And then that should have encouraged he should have encouraged JJ to do it, not when JJ was literally talking to her about the circumstance, deliver the news so abruptly.
Yes.
Because the blow would have been softer. But it could have happened a lot sooner, and JJ will be the first person to admit he could have told her sooner. But there is also an element of, if it's not done on camera, it shouldn't be done.
Yeah.
And JJ was struggling to find the right moment because you're surrounded by 20 other people.
Of course.
So I understand where JJ's come from, and that's what Luke was trying to tell Jordan. Like, Jordan, it's JJ's news to tell.
Yeah.
He's really been struggling. He had to take time away from Bianca because he didn't know what was going on. He didn't know how he was feeling for his own mental health. And he could have texted her that was going on, and maybe he should have. However, we are always told if we have these things that we need to deliver, it has to be captured. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense.
Oh gosh, that is difficult.
So can you imagine JJ having producers saying, "No, look, this is how you feel, but you have to wait until we get a camera."
Yeah.
And do it at the dinner party because we can't get a camera right now.
Oh,
things like that happened.
That's really tough then, isn't it?
It's really tough. And I felt so much for JJ. I felt for Bianca because it wasn't fair what happened to Bianca.
No, bless her.
But in JJ's defence, he never led her on. He tried, but they just didn't have that compatibility.
You could see from the beginning, though, if I recall, you said about your face telling the truth. I mean, if you look back at that episode where he sees her, you could see it just wasn't. I mean, I thought they were lovely, and I thought Bianca was lovely. She's quite a cute little thing, isn't she?
She's a lovely person.
Yeah, but you could see they weren't. He just couldn't feel it for whatever reason. How did he? Because in terms of Mafs, I know Ella Morgan wasn't the first trans person on a reality TV show. I think that was Nadia from years and years ago with Big Brother.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. But I know she was the first for Mafs, and I know that JJ probably got some interesting social media responses to him falling in love with her, or at least having strong feelings for her on the show. So how has that been from your knowledge for JJ? I think
JJ is actually so resilient.
Yeah.
it didn't seem to touch him that much.
No, I saw that. I thought that.
I'm incredibly proud of him as a result.
Yeah.
Because look, Ella's a woman.
Yeah.
Looks like a woman, talks like a woman.
Yeah.
Is a woman.
Yeah.
Do androids dream of electric sheep? Yes. A bit of an esoteric reference there. She's a woman.
Yeah.
And he was attracted to a woman.
Yeah.
And so any question of his sexuality to him was just over his head.
They just allowed it to go over. It didn't affect him. Because I saw, when you go on TikTok, I'm not a massive TikTok user, but I've got some posts on there. So I never very, very rarely scroll.
We're always in everyone's feed, apparently.
Yeah, that's right. You are. And I saw this post of JJ, and if anyone does anything horrible on mine, Instagram or TikTok, I just delete it straight away. I don't engage. But I saw all these comments, and they were horrible towards him. Yeah. Like really vile comments. And I couldn't actually read them because I was getting triggered by it. I was like, this is not right that this is allowed.
Yeah. And I just remember talking to him, just making sure every day or every other day, saying, "Oh, you okay? How's everything going?" He's just, "Yeah, we're good. We're just going out for dinner, going to the gym."
So he was just fine.
I know it impacted him, but he got on with it.
Yeah.
He did not let it stop him from living his life.
Yeah.
And stopping him doing the things he wanted to do.
Yeah.
I remember he was very, he just felt very anxious about confronting people in public, but he confronted it and he was like, "No, I'm fine. I'll go over it."
Wow, what a guy.
It's weird. He's the most confident, chilled person I've ever met.
Yeah.
But he describes himself as quietly confident.
Yeah.
And that's the perfect way to describe him.
Yeah.
Because you don't, it's like, a lot of people say, "Oh, he's quite introverted." No, he's not introverted. He's just comfortable in his own skin, doesn't need to be the loudest person in the room.
Interesting, because I did see that he was quite popular with the boys. Like they all seem to take him on, and when you're the newbie, it's not always easy. But I saw that he had a really good relationship with people, which was, I watched stuff like that. I thought, oh, that's interesting.
It is quite funny. People would say, because JJ and I are really close, same thing with me and Luke, and people are like, "That's the most unlikely friendship ever."
Yeah.
because again, we're very different. But
you're all very different, yeah.
Yeah, but it's so funny like that. My two of my best friends from the show are two Essex geezers.
Yeah.
I never thought I'd be friendly with people from Essex, and vice versa. I never thought I'd be friendly
love
with someone who
love
sounds
at
like
the end
from
of the
Downton
day.
Abbey.
Yeah, but it's nice. I like that because actually, again, it's that American thing. The Americans either think we're Cockney or they think you sound like Prince William.
100%.
So you're the Prince William, and they're the Dick Van Dyke character from Mary Poppins. That's what people in America would say.
Oh, and JJ's the one that's blooming loaded.
Yeah.
He's not cleaning any chimneys.
What does he do? He's got a brand or something.
So he was very successful with some investments, and he now has his own fashion brand.
So he's just brings us neatly on. I did not know that was going to bring us on to the Masters and what you're actually doing. Brings us neatly on. So for those that didn't pay a lot of attention and perhaps don't know what you do, JJ making good investments is essentially where you're going. Not necessarily with JJ, but just in terms of your line of work. So tell us about that.
So I've always worked in financial services, but more from a communications perspective. So we're looking more to go into financial advising.
So will you be the advisor, or will you be more educational in that space? Will you be the one-to-one person that someone can go to, or will you be more broadly educating through different ways of getting that message across?
My mission statement is to give people the tools to be able to make those financial decisions themselves.
So schools, stuff like that, if
schools, just by creating content where people can really understand what's going on and make it jargonless. Because I believe the thing that really turns people off from it is I have no clue what I'm looking at when they see the words and the acronyms, and it's just about helping people understand it in a really simple way, because it's not difficult. Yeah. It's made out to be quite difficult, and there's so much about it, and it changes so often, and it's hard to keep up to date. So I really want to be able to give people those tools whilst I'm training to become a financial advisor, so then I can help people directly if I can.
What's really interesting about that, if we tie in all the information that we've learned so far, is that you were at school and not, well, certainly in the lower sets for everything, but then actually ended up being a high achiever. And that system fundamentally does fail a lot of kids that learn differently.
Definitely.
And one of the things that I said to you earlier was I've always struggled with the numbers and always felt almost, dyspraxia really, I would say. And then you saying that is that you want to educate people and at school age and keep it jargonless and simple, because if you don't understand something and you haven't got that ability to stay connected to it, so you find it hard to concentrate or pay attention, you're never going to learn. So for someone to be out there giving the information in a way that is digestible, because you were that kid in class that if you were bored you wouldn't be able to connect, so you're trying to create a connection to the financial wealth, I guess, that can be achieved in a way that's easy to understand for everybody.
100%, because the power of investing is so insane that, for example, if your parents put £5,000 into an account that grew on average 10% every year until you could access it at the age of 55 when you retire, or the earliest age you can legally retire in the UK, that would be worth almost £1 million.
Wow.
Nothing else being added to that fund. So can you imagine if people kept investing a big portion of their income, they could retire a lot earlier and not have to worry about financial troubles. People don't know this, or people are unable to give themselves that discipline because we are unable to deviate from gratification that is now.
Yes.
And the best people to help people do that is financial advisor, because you would never go to court without a lawyer.
Yeah.
So you will never do your own finances when you're working in a full-time position doing something else.
Yeah.
You need a financial advisor, because a financial advisor, on average, will gain you an extra 3% every year versus if you do it yourself. That, over time,
That's mind-blowing.
Just compounds.
Well, you said something else about mortgages, about the interest rates, that if you actually pay twice a month into your mortgage, same amount or thereabouts the same amount, but you actually save on interest if you pay more regularly, for not 100%. All lenders, but for some.
Just because of the way interest works, and we're not going to go into the esoteric details of how it works, if you pay bi-monthly instead of once a month, you can reduce the amount of interest you pay over the entire lifespan of your mortgage. Just
simple stuff like that is so enlightening.
And it's like, people don't even know you can do that.
Yeah.
Some lenders don't let you do that, but call your bank, call your mortgage lender, see if you can. If you can't, pay an extra payment once a year. Yeah. I don't think that there is a penalty on that. Sometimes there is. Yeah. But that reduces the overall interest you're paying on and you're actually able to access the principal. So,
may I ask you a few questions on this? Just because I think this is actually really important and interesting, and it will be content that we can both use. Well, certainly it would be useful for me to share and then learn from. What would you say are the top 3 things to invest in? Because everyone talks about crypto now, so I'm really interested in finding out from you.
Keep away from crypto. Yeah. If you're so there's this really interesting principle called the 5% rule. Yeah. The 5% rule is you don't invest anything more than 5% of anything into any particular area.
Interesting.
So that means if you have 20 different assets invested in, you are diversified. Yes. Because if one goes to zero, all your eggs aren't in one basket. Cool. Yeah. Nice. So for example, I did have 5% of my portfolio in crypto once, and it eventually became 50%. But then whilst I did make a lot of money selling it, if I'd kept it would have dropped down to 2%. So this is how volatile crypto is, and I would not recommend it for anyone who's looking to glide into retirement or has money that they need very soon.
So for someone like me who's like average in the sense that I'm not a millionaire, right? But I'm also not, I have some ability to invest, minimal. But let's say I wanted to just, I've got 2 properties, so I'm comfortable with that. But if I wanted to, I don't know, have that you mentioned the 10% savings account, where would be, because I always thought that ISAs were a good idea, and then someone said that it's really not that high of an interest and that there are probably better ways to earn money. But then I know nothing, which is why I'm asking the question. Yeah. So what would you recommend?
So there are loads of different vehicles you can use. So if you're looking to buy your first house, there are lifetime ISAs, but you have to be below a certain age threshold, so it's not necessarily for everyone. Yeah. You can also, I think ISAs are really good. Yeah. Because the capital gains you get from them are tax-free. Yes. And it means, and you can withdraw them at any time. Yeah. So it's like investing into your retirement, but being able to access them in a hurry.
And there's no danger with ISAs at all?
No, it's the liquidity of the person you invest with, or the investment platform you invest with, and they're always good usually. Yeah. Very rare that they're not going to be able to give you your money. Yeah. So don't worry about that. Okay. So it's not about ISAs and whether they're bad. It's about what you invest within those ISAs. Okay. So it depends on a few different things. And this is the thing, how risk averse are you? What are your plans? Do you have a certain level of risk tolerance towards the market? So if you invested in the S&P 500, you could average 10% a year.
Yeah.
That's not bad.
When you say could, what's the lowest you would expect?
Well, it's just because that's the historical average, and
yeah.
historical performance isn't indicative of future performance.
Right.
But it's a good indicator.
Okay.
Because, let's be honest, S&P 500, it's the top best 500 companies according to this index in the US, which is exposed to the world. So it means it's gaining you're gaining access to the 500 best performing companies in the world. Yeah. That's basically what it says. Yeah. And it rebalances quite often. So really, are the best 500 companies in the world ever going to go to zero?
Yeah. So that's your safest bet.
So that it's not necessary if you have exposure, because like with COVID, it dropped massively overnight.
Yeah, I mean, and we never know if something like that's going to happen, but it's unlikely to be that extreme in the near future.
So what happens is, because it's considered high risk investing into the stock market, but there are ways to reduce that risk. Right. So you can invest in funds that are fixed income, for example. So if you're coming into retirement and you wanted to ensure every quarter you were getting the same amount of money and you knew what was coming, you can invest in something called a fixed income fund. Okay. So you know how much you're getting depending on how much you put in. Yeah. Whereas you can invest into the S&P 500 and they give out what's called discretionary dividends, and this means they can decide how much money they give you. So you never actually know, but what a lot of people do is they reinvest it. It's called an accumulative investment, so you don't actually take the dividends out and pay taxes on that. You just keep
putting it back in.
You put it back in, you buy more stock.
So it's just like a long game.
It's a long game. So there are so many different things to do, and it depends on what you want to do. So everyone has different goals. Yeah. So if you want to invest in your first property, a lifetime ISA is a really good idea. If you are wanting to, if you've maxed out your pension, you're paying to national insurance, and you want to ensure that your retirement is going to be good, you can go into your ISA. You've got £20,000 limit, phenomenal. Yeah. But then if you've got a lump sum of money, you can invest in private investments. Yes. So into this something called seed enterprise schemes. EIS, enterprise investment schemes, and then seed enterprise investment schemes. And the government basically says no capital gains on this, tax free on your gains, because they're encouraging you to invest in private companies and startups and new things which really grow the economy, because our new companies grow the economy is what makes up the vast majority of jobs. So there are so many things you can do. What about crowdfunding? Does that fit into that? You know, when you get businesses asking for investments. When it comes to crowdfunding, it depends on what kind of crowdfunding, right? Like if it's Kickstarter, you just give them money, you get something. Yeah. But you don't get stakeholding. Sometimes that does work, but yeah, you want to make sure you actually get equity. This is the thing, right? There's so many things to invest in and people don't know what. But personally, I love the S&P 500. Yeah. It's just a good return on investment. It's already diversified for you. Instead of the 5% rule, it's split into 500 companies. Yes. It's 500 different investments of the best performing companies according to some of the best analysts in the US. If you have a certain level of risk tolerance and exposure to the market, you can invest there. But my thing is, until I'm qualified, I will never tell anyone what to invest in. No. But I'll tell people how to find good investments. Yes. And the best way to find something to invest in qualitatively is investing in something you believe in. Yes. So if you believe in Apple and what they're doing, and they are now the most valuable company in the world, $3 trillion market cap, they'll probably do something right for you. Yeah. And they pay out a dividend. They have bigger cash reserves than some banks. Yeah. So it's about saying, okay, are they liquid? Is the revenue growing every year? Are the profits growing every year? How's people's perception of Apple? Do people still like them? Or things you notice in the streets, like for example with cinemas, right? When was the last time you went to the cinema? Oh God, before COVID actually. Before COVID. So would you invest in a cinema? Probably not. Because you see people aren't using them anymore. Yeah. People aren't going. People aren't enjoying it. Movies haven't been that great recently. No, because of the writers' strike. So it makes you go, okay, these are qualitative indicators of why I shouldn't invest. Yes. And it's very simple, but you wouldn't think that's how to invest until they're pointed out. Yeah. And it's about reminding people, or just saying, look, like here's like a really good tip. Yeah. And it's even really silly things like, do not invest when things are expensive.
Yeah.
Because when people see the value of a company go up really high, people go, I want to get in on this.
Yeah.
And buy it at the peak. But if you saw the price of chicken double in price in a supermarket, you would go, I'll have beef.
Yes. That's very true. Yeah. Yeah.
And so then when it drops in value and they bought it at a bad price, by bad price I mean very expensive, and then the value of their investment goes down massively, people sell.
Yes.
Whereas if you saw chicken at a discount, you'd go, that's a good price.
Yeah.
That's well cheaper than what I got last week.
Yeah.
I love this. And it's the only market where people react inversely.
Yeah.
And I understand the psychology behind it. People go, I want to get in on the price before it goes up even higher.
Yeah.
And people go, I want to preserve my money before I lose any more.
Yeah.
But what happens is Fidelity found, and they are an investment platform, that their most successful investment accounts belong to those who had forgotten they had an account with Fidelity, or those who had died.
Ooh.
So what does that say? It means markets trend upwards.
Yes.
Leave it, buy and hold. It will probably go back up in the future.
See, this is so interesting because, here we are talking about maths for ages, and I know that that's really interesting to other people, but it leads in nicely to this conversation for people that out there that might go, oh, that's actually really cool that you know this stuff, because I know that no one taught me this. I am of an age where, I think it's really, retrospectively looking back, it's so important to understand this stuff. I remember getting a massive tax bill and it almost killed me because it wasn't that I didn't know I had to pay tax. It's that I didn't expect what was going to come through the door. And I've never felt, apart from really traumatic occasions, such a dread. So just bringing those little examples of chicken and beef, and I know it's to some people it may be too simple, but actually for me that works. And just understanding the very basics. And whilst we're all waiting for you to get qualified, because everyone's now going to be like queuing up, what kind of books or platforms would you suggest as a good starting place, other than yours, because you're going to go into that area of education, but where else can people find good information, do you think?
I think platforms like Investopedia, really great. But again, it's so diffuse, and you go in going, wow, this is overwhelming. This is quite a lot. There are some really good TikTok accounts. So Dave Ramsey and the Money Guys, they make it quite entertaining. They give you these really good analogies and examples, but it's very American-centric.
Yes.
So this is where I feel like in the UK, we have this problem where do we go to actually find out what to invest and where to invest, how to invest.
What was that statistic you mentioned earlier to me about the difference between people using financial advisors in the UK and America?
In the UK, to be fair, it did grow. It used to be 6%, but now 8% of people in the UK use financial advisors, whereas in the US, around 33%. I think a bit more.
So different, isn't it?
Almost 1/3.
Why do you think that is?
I think it's just more ingrained in the culture over there. Like, I'll go to someone for financial advice like I go to someone to be my lawyer. When I need
a therapist. They're always ahead of us like that. They understand. I mean, I think because of the American dream and, wanting to be the best, I think they've always had a really good and healthy view of how to help yourself be the best.
Yeah. And that is something we're really struggling with here, because if a lot of us had more financial advisors, because what happens in the UK is, right, your friend says, invest in this. This is really good.
Yeah.
And then you lose a lot of money.
Yeah, that's right.
That's how it happens here.
Yeah.
People just go on the friend's understanding, which is probably very lacking.
Yeah.
When really, no, you go to a professional, because if you go with a financial advisor, on average, you will make 3% more every year.
You see, that's a lot of money.
Over a lifetime, that is a lot of money.
Can I ask you another question? I don't want to keep you, but it's just it came into my head as you were talking about how people invest here. And I remember an old friend of mine who would invest in lots of different things, and he was always, going to meetings with this person and that person. A lot of it never came to fruition. But what he did bring to my attention was Ponzi schemes.
Yes.
And I'd never heard of a Ponzi scheme, and I really still don't really understand what it is. So for anyone that's listening, kind of goes... there you go. There's the banging. It's a physio room upstairs. I said that before, didn't I? And they end up, I don't know what she does. It sounds like she's dropping someone's head on the floor. Hopefully they'll survive.
Well, you said there was a leak. I think that's blood.
Yeah. I did. You've come on a day where there's loads of noise and loads of flooding, but hey, we move.
We love it.
So Ponzi schemes then.
Yes.
I would love to understand that a little bit more.
A Ponzi scheme is when, say for example, you come to me and go, look, I want to invest. Oh, actually, no. Say I come to you and I say, you should invest with me. I can give you really good returns.
Mm.
And you go, oh, well, how good are the returns? I go, I can make you 50% of what you give me in a year. And you go, wow, that's really good. That's way better than what I found elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Are you sure? I'm like, yeah, 100%. So you give me that money. So you've given me, say, £100,000.
Mm-hmm.
But then you want £50,000 next year.
Mm.
So then I go to someone else and go, hey, person B, I can give you 50% return next year. Give me £100,000. They give me £100,000. So now I have £200,000, and I can go to you guys again next year once I've got it from 5 other people, and I now have I've got £1 million, and you go, oh, like, can I have my money back? And I go, yeah, I can give you this money back, right? You've got £150,000 here, but I can make you another £50,000 next year. Oh no, I want the cash. Oh look, I can give you this cash, but like you now have £150,000. So basically, you're not giving anyone any real return because you're just using other people's money to pay people off. So what usually happens is people realize, oh, I want to take my money back, and there's no money left in the fund, and people lose out on millions. Now
that makes sense. So how do you spot that? Is it just because it seems too good to be true?
Yeah.
Right.
So when returns are too consistent, it's not real.
Okay. That's really interesting. I had I will not mention any names because this could be a legal situation, but I had a woman come to me because I'd known somebody that she'd invested in some time ago. Yeah. And this person shall remain nameless, but let's put it this way. Everything on paper, unless you dug a bit deeper, looked like you could trust him because of his public profile and his successes in the career that he was in. And if you'd have Googled him, you would have seen actually not to trust him because it was public knowledge that he had a problem with stealing money off people. So she came to me because I'd known him, and there was obviously a link somewhere that she'd found that I'd known him in the past professionally. And she had given him £62,000 and someone else had given him £50,000, and he'd gone to all these different people to invest in a business. And again, I can't say the business because it will reveal who he is for those that are listening that know him. And you know, this was a lot of money from these women that I think were single women and giving their life savings away. And one of the sort of questions will be from a lot of people will be, well, how on earth was she that, you know, silly to give all that money away? But I suppose if someone's a good salesperson and you don't know anything about money, hence the reason you're so important going into this area of trying to give people those bite-sized chunks of information to make them aware. Yeah. It is, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. And that's an old saying, but it fits, doesn't it?
Because the whole thing about building your financial profile is slow but steady. You'll get there in the end. Yeah.
That's a very good point, Thomas. I like that.
And if anyone says, yeah, I can make you a good bit of money now.
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
There's no quick money-making schemes that are 100%.
Yeah.
You know, there are some high-risk options. So crypto, high risk. You can make money from crypto.
Yeah.
But you never know if it's going to go up and down. It's so volatile.
So stressful.
And it's stressful. And you don't want it to... So when you invest in crypto, you invest with what you don't miss. Mm-hmm. If it disappears, you can be like, okay.
On that note, I've actually invested in some crypto and I can't remember where.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, it was only £250 in one and then £250 in another, but that was 2017. So I don't know where
I'm actually... If it was 2017, depending what it is, it could be worth a bit.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know how to find it. I've searched my emails like with a fine-tooth comb and I don't know where it is. I suppose the only way I could do it is to go to the bank and say I need to look through my bank statements of 2017.
That's potential.
Because I thought it was eToro, but I don't think it is. I can't remember the names. So there was 2 names. If someone said them to me, I'd be like, that's it.
What's it called again?
Is there one begin with S?
I can't think of one beginning with S. There is... we'll have a look.
Yeah, I'm so frustrated with it.
We'll go through some platforms and see if I can help you.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, we'll try and find out where you... Look, 2017, it was either a trough or a peak.
Yeah.
Where when you invested. Do you know how...
I think it was looking good.
Was it looking good?
Yeah.
Because I know Christmas 2017, it got really high and then went down.
Oh, maybe it might have been right at the end. Could be on the peak of 2018.
But things are everything's booming right now as well.
Yeah.
Potentially could be worse than this.
Oh my gosh.
I had one investment. It was, I think, $800 turned into 15,000. So this is the thing with crypto, but it's not safe.
No.
And I would never encourage anyone to invest in crypto. And this is my principle. I will never tell anyone what to invest in.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be responsible for that. But I want to tell people how to begin.
I love that. I really appreciate that. You know, just people out there that are willing to help the likes of me that haven't got a clue what they're doing. Because I think it's you feel very disempowered when you don't know what to do with money.
It's an anxiety. It's almost taboo to even talk about it.
It really is. That's why it's so important. And I
don't really know about investing. You don't want to say it.
No, because for me particularly and you'll know this because the way you were judged at school with, being in the bottom sets and all that. I don't want people to look at me and go, hang on, you should know about this stuff. You're 45 years old. You run a business. You should understand how to use your money. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. And so then I don't ask and I don't say anything because it's embarrassing.
And this is why I always say financial advisor, because a financial advisor, even if you just go for a consultation, you just say, look, this is what I want to do. They'll say either they can or can't. Yeah.
And you've got to be completely transparent as well. And I think there's a bit of shame in that, isn't there? Look, you've got to go, okay, here's how rubbish I am with money to that person. You're worried that they're going to judge you.
But we can't be a master at everything.
No, and my accountant did say that to me because I used to go, God, I'm so sorry, I'm so stupid. And he used to say, you're not stupid. You're really good at what you do, and I'm really good at what I do. It's not about being stupid. It's about just not having the education or not having the brain that focuses that way.
But it's just that your specialization is just not in finance.
Yeah.
Your specialization makes you money somewhere else.
Yeah.
But now it's about, you're in that boat, you've been rowing.
Yeah.
It's making you money. It's good. Now it's time to put up the sail so you can stop rowing in the future.
So who would you say is your biggest, I guess, money icon? Who do you look up to?
So I'd say, and this is going to be a really stereotypical one, so Warren Buffett.
Yeah.
When do you think he made 99% of his money?
I don't know.
Make a guess, because it's really interesting.
At the end of his career? I don't know.
He made 99% of his money after the age of 65.
Yes, I must have known that. I must have known that because something made me think it must be at the end. And
this is the power of compound investing. It goes to the point where it's like slowly. Oh, then you hit the stratosphere and it just goes up like
it's
that.
So comforting, isn't it?
It is. And it's just the sooner you start, the better. The more you put in now, the less you have to worry about it later.
And what's your feeling of credit?
I feel like the only debt you should be taking out is a mortgage.
Interesting.
You then only use it for big expenses.
Yeah. So
it's safe and you can get the money back if you get defrauded. Or in emergencies. Okay.
Because there's those two schools of thought, isn't it? That if you get lots on credit, but you can pay it back straight away, some things are covered if you buy them with credit cards, and you can get a bit more support if you buy some on credit. But I think what you're saying is, and what other people have said historically is, it's not a good idea unless you can pay it back straight away. Don't get into debt.
100%. You use credit cards. So, for example, you can get different credit cards with different benefits. So, for example, you can get money off fuel.
Yeah.
You can get all these different benefits to...
American Express cards are brilliant.
Express cards are a really good example.
Yeah.
And these have some... So if you can get 0% interest if you can pay it back by the end of the month.
Yes.
And you can get cards, depending on the state of the economy, which have low interest rates as long as you have a good history with that credit card company.
Yeah.
In the future. So it's good to have a credit card. It's good to use it sporadically.
Yeah.
But I believe never live beyond your means.
Yes.
You never take out debts unless you can pay it back.
Yeah.
You have the money to pay it back.
Yeah.
Or you can see the money to be able to pay that back. Because even, for example, by financing a car, you are sacrificing your future.
Yeah.
You never get a car on finance.
Yeah.
I don't believe in it. I believe that if you do get a car on finance, no more than 3 years.
Yes.
And during that 3-year period, it should be no more than 8% APR.
Amazing to know that.
Because you want to make sure that you're well within your means, and it shouldn't be any more than 15-20% of your income.
Yes.
So those are some things to live by. But again, think about it. It's not the car that is expensive that you buy that causes you to lose money. It's maintaining it.
Yes.
People don't forget a BMW has an expensive maintenance bill.
Yeah, it does.
And can you keep up with that?
Yeah, and does it matter? Because that was going to be my next question, and I will then leave your brain alone because I don't want to like pickle your brain too much. But the next question would be, what do you think about things like the investment pieces? And I say it like that because that's perspective, I guess. You know, your Rolexes and your watches and those things that are seen as collectibles that are supposed to retain value. I see a lot now because of social media of people wanting the Rolex and wanting those items, and perhaps they can't always afford them, but they could justify it with it's an investment piece.
I think you never it's difficult because they hold value.
Yeah, they do. Yeah,
they are assets. You can pawn them. And you can get loans on the behalf, but they are material wants.
Yes,
and the money can be better used elsewhere. And you can only use that money for a Rolex if you have the money disposable.
Yes.
If you have not bought a house, if you do not have a car that's off finance, if you have any high interest debt, if you have any loans that are still out that aren't your mortgage, if you are not investing in your future, you can't buy it.
Yeah. Sensible.
It's just you have to live life with discipline. You can't be living your life with in desire for material wants if you cannot at the sacrifice of your future.
Yes.
It's just not worth it.
No.
The stress it puts on you in the future just because you bought a watch now, you're like, oh well, I'm gonna have to sell it in 10 years anyway.
But it's a very interesting area because I think I grew up with absolutely nothing, by the way, absolutely nothing. So I now look at everything as really super valuable. I can spend money, don't get me wrong, but I work really bloody hard.
Yeah.
And I don't take it for granted because I haven't had it. And I think the thing that I worry about is lots of young people that they really just want to be seen to be doing really, really well. And actually a lot of them are getting into debt so that they can have the photos on social media and it's not necessarily the best idea they've ever had. So I just wanted to, because I guess there'll be some younger listeners. You might bring some younger listeners to this episode. And it won't be me that does that, but you shall. And it's nice for them to hear that little bit of context to spending money. And how long will it be before we see you doing some more of that kind of stuff on your socials or on, more widely with education?
To be fair, I've left it because I didn't do the show to do this.
Yeah.
I did the show because I wanted a relationship. And I came out really finding myself. I didn't expect that. I thought I'd found myself. I thought I was pretty introspective and pretty aware of my flaws and what I was like, but I found out no, there was a big silhouette that I didn't notice. So I think in the new year, once I'm settled, the dust has blown over, people forget that I was on the show, I will then push what I was doing in my career before.
Yeah.
And then because I really struggled to educate myself about investing and finances because I find it very difficult to find anywhere that encompasses everything. So I hope very soon I can be able to give people those resources.
That's really cute. And I think, although I know that wasn't your driving force, I think that actually, if you've got a public platform and you can use it for good, then that's a really positive thing, not just for you, because that regenerates, the energy all the time and you'll get really lovely feedback. And I know you're not about the fame or whatever, but I think that it's really important that you do something with it. And I think that's a really, really important area to work in. So I want to say thank you, by the way, for being so open with me personally, but also on the show and answering all those questions, because I did throw a lot at you. And I wonder if it's something that people will be able to really enjoy because it shows us the depth of who you are. And I think also you've really had Rozz's back today, and I know she'll probably appreciate that as well. And it's nice for people to hear that you're still friends. So thank you for coming here and being so vulnerable.
No, thank you, because I wasn't like this before. I am now, so you deal with it. You get everything.
Yeah, I love that.
Emotional vomit.
Yeah, I like that. I think it's so important, Thomas. And every time I say Rozz's name, I see you go a little bit teary, which is quite sweet. But also, it's just obviously quite a lot, isn't it, for you the last few months?
Yeah, because I just don't want anyone to think she's anything but an amazing person. She is.
Oh, well, if they don't think that after listening to today and hearing you speak so beautifully about her, then I don't know what you can do to change people's perspectives. You know, she really has obviously had such a profound effect on you. And I know that you've been completely honest and genuine today about her in particular, but also about yourself. And I want to thank you for that, because it's, oh, look,
sorry.
I have this effect on people. I'm so sorry. I love that, though. Like I said before, I think people seeing you be vulnerable upsets them, because you're such a lovely person. And I think people do see you cry and they get sad. But there's been, as we've said today, there's been so much growth in you. She's really helped you to find yourself. And you've got a bit of a journey ahead of yourself. But I think it's beautiful that that's the gift that you got. I mean, it's called Married at First Sight. But I think actually it really was about finding that connection and relationship with yourself.
Yeah, I do feel like I just feel happy. And it's, I haven't been able to say that for a while.
Yeah, and you deserve it. And everything I've said today, I mean. And if you leave here with nothing else, I want you to leave here knowing that you are worthy of all the positive feedback and all the positive energy. And you've got to stop doubting yourself off the back of the whole experience, and also just lean into the good stuff, because you are worthy of it.
Thank you. I do appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, thank you for being here.
No, thank you for inviting me. Loved it.
I've loved it as well. Thank you.
Brilliant.